Professor.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. So let's get going. So this, I think, we'll continue a little bit from the earlier session, which we lost because of Zoom issues. By the way, we are also starting the module on pricing from Saturday, right?
Right, sir.
So please go through the readings because pricing might be a bit heavy. There are some pre-reads that I would have shared already. Right? Is my screen visible?
Yes, Professor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So when we talk of sports marketing, where we were in the last session, we talked a little bit about, the idea that, we talk about sports marketing. One key component that has occupied the landscape is this leagues. And we said, let's look at the business of leagues. Why leagues? Because leagues are the one that are currently driving all the business. The sports marketing landscape, the leagues are generating the most amount of money. And therefore, we said, let's try and understand the business model of leagues. And we started with trying to figure out what drives the success of league. And what I have shared here on the screen is what is the big list that you all helped me generate. Right from the fact that the sports itself should be popular. If you are talking about a league, if the league is for a sports like cricket, then it is going to be popular. If it is going to be about volleyball or basketball, it might not be as popular. We talked about stars. So you need to have popular and international stars for a league to be popular. If the stars are not there, nobody's going to come and watch the league. It's also a function of how is the country doing in that sports. So, for example, kabaddi. Kabaddi might not be it might not have that recognition for stars, but the fact that the country does well, people they would come and they would watch. Badminton, it started becoming popular just because India started doing well, and that is when we had a Premier Badminton League. We talked about the other factor is that whether the sports is contrived as a team game or it is an actual team game, and that is my observation. My understanding is that when leagues are typically meant for teams, leagues are not meant for individual sports. And how do people develop a league for individual sports? They will try and create an artificial team and contrived team. So if you look at Ultimate Table Tennis League, the Ultimate Table Tennis League had somebody trying to have a team that would have some two or three singles matches, a number of doubles matches. The wrestling league, the boxing league, the Q league, etc. None of them have worked. So if anybody is trying to develop a league using individual games and trying to design them as a team game, my guess is it's not going to work. In fact, if you look at even people who are tennis fans, even Davis Cup does not have the same level, of viewership. The one that Wimbledon and French Open or Australian Open or a US Open manage. Team games have become extremely difficult. The role of federation sports bodies, we talked about this. Unless you've got the support of the federations or the sports bodies, you're not going to have a successful league. ICL started well before IPL, the Indian Cricket League. But BCCI said, okay, we are not going to support ICL. We'll have our own league. ICL died. The Hockey League, the Hockey India League, I don't know how many of you followed it. It had all the right ingredients. Hockey is a popular sport, and when they started the Hockey India League, at least India had started doing a little bit better at the international level. Now the problem was there are two different federations, and both of them are fighting with each other, and it becomes so difficult for the bodies to run the sports. Uncertainty is important. We'll talk a little bit about this. Celebrities help, influencers help, and that is what we have seen with IPL, and we have also seen it with ISL and even a Pro Kabaddi League. The players, the stars. We talked about facilities. Facilities has been one game changer that in India when it IPL started, IPL people realized that we need to have more facilities for the fans, and that is when the Indian cricket stadium started improving. If you want all kind of demographics and not just devoted fans, we need to improve the facilities. Media coverage is important, and that is where some of the leagues they have faced a challenge. And I was talking to Charu Sharma when he was trying to develop or sell the rights for the Pro Kabaddi League. Nobody was willing, and he had to work really hard on getting somebody to air, and they were asking Charu Sharma a lot of money. They said, okay, please pay us 5 lakh rupees per game, and only then we'll air. Thankfully, Star got interested, and that is when, and they said, okay, we'll take some kind of an ownership. Calendar becomes important. Cricket, BCCI got the ICC's approval to have the event in the calendar. Otherwise, most of the other leagues, ISL faces a big challenge because you cannot schedule it when the other leagues are happening. You typically schedule matches, you typically try to fit it in a calendar when the European leagues are not in flow, right? We talked about governance, we talked about business model, ability to attract sponsors. But then we said, okay, let's look at the US environment. We said, and we use MLS a little bit as some kind of a discussion point. The US environment, and it also allows us to look into the basics of a league. So what we talked about was that the US environment, US, by the way, has got 4 major leagues. The National Football League, which is American football, the National Hockey League, and
Okay.
that is not the field hockey that we play, but the ice
Ice
hockey
hockey.
that they play, the Major League Baseball, and the National Basketball Association. So these were the 4 big leagues. They wanted to develop major soccer, as they call it, and for FIFA, it was important that the sports reaches US, the America, because America is the one country which was having a big business size, and they said, okay, if we can conquer America, then we are going to generate a lot of revenues. US didn't have a football league, and that is what FIFA said. Okay, they said, okay, we are giving you the rights, but promise us that you will start a league. So 1994, the FIFA World Cup rights were awarded to US, and they started their league in 1996. Now, what's so different about MLS? How does it develop? What are the major challenges? Anyone? I think we discussed a little bit, but any quick recap? What are the challenges? How do you grow MLS in a country where you already have 4 major leagues? Any thoughts? Do we have fans? Enough fans? People are not watching football or the soccer. The fans are There's a huge following for NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball. Soccer has not been a traditional sports for Americans. There
And
are pockets.
it would be difficult for them to get superstars to play in that particular league.
Now, and that is where we had a chicken and egg story. Now look
So once,
at
Cosmos was there and Pele used to play in that club.
right. You're right.
They
And
tried to get Beckham, I think, in the end.
they did, but now look at how are the American leagues organized? Now, one thing I don't know how many of you are aware of this, whether it's NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, NBA, they have something very common with our IPL or even with our Pro Kabaddi League. And that is each of the teams have got a fixed kitty that they spend on the players. And why does it happen? Because Americans, while they love sports, they love business even more. For them, the starting point of anything is the business side. And they said when all these leagues were formed, they realized pretty early that we have to make the leagues a commercial success. And how do you make a league commercial success? So all these club owners, they came together and they said we'll try to keep the player salaries low. And how do we keep the player salaries low? They said we'll form an association. And they said a league can be only successful if there is a competitiveness. If the leagues are competitive enough, which means the teams have to be competitive enough. And how do we make the teams competitive or equally competitive? We say all of you can only spend a certain amount of money in buying the players. So all these leagues, they started in the 90s and they started with a more commercial outlook. They said we have to make it a commercial success, and therefore all of these teams come and they say it's a very, in the heart of capitalism, it's a very socialistic approach. That didn't happen in the European League. So the European Football League, whether it's in EPL, the English Premier League does not have, or even whether it's a German La Liga, whether it's a Spanish La Liga, or whether it's a Bundesliga, or most of these clubs, they had a league which was much older, and they had been playing. The commercialization happened much later, and therefore the clubs were so big. They said we are going to have our own independent budget. And therefore, in the European League, you do not see a fixed salary pack. In the English Premier League, Manchester City can spend any amount. Manchester United can spend any amount. It's also important because football is played across multiple countries, and therefore if you want to be a successful league, you have to attract the best players. And how do you attract the best players unless you pay them high salaries? As soon as you have a cap on the salaries, you cannot get the best players. And therefore, English Premier League, they do not have a salary cap. La Liga does not have a salary cap because they are competing within their own league, but they are also competing across the country. NFL, NHL, MLB, NBA, they do not face this problem because the American football is only played in US. The NHL was played in US and Canada, but it has moved towards US because Canada does not have enough people to support the league. And what I mean is they do not have sufficient number of people that will fill the stadium. It's a sparsely populated country. They do not have the revenue sources. And therefore NHL, while hockey is a national game of Canada, if you look at the how the league is structured, it has moved towards US. Even down south, they have got NHL teams. While there's no snow, there's no ice down south. But it's all a game of how much revenue you can generate. Major League Baseball played primarily in US, a little bit in Cuba, a little bit in Japan. NBA, primarily a league which is centered, the professional league was primarily a US thing. Italy, a little bit. And that is where the challenge of MLS, you realize, you are competing also against other leagues. So here you could have, for the big four, you could have a bit of socialistic approach because you are limited within your country's boundary, but you cannot have the same for Major League Soccer. So they've had a question. Sukhdev, you had raised your hand.
Yeah. Sir, audible now? Good, sir.
Yes, you're audible.
Sir, am I audible? Good. Just written that in major soccer clubs of now, and even in our cricket scenario also in India, nowadays young, people, young boys groom boys and girls for upcoming players. So they do get a layers out there. So that has changed scenario. They in the both uh, yeah, the Spanish league, uh, Serie A.
Mm-hmm. So your voice was cracking, but what I figured out, what you were trying to say, if I am correct, is that while in India the IPL was pretty popular, of late people are finding football much more attractive, soccer. Am I right?
Sorry, sir, I got disconnected.
Sukhdev, your voice is
Please
cracking.
continue, sir. Yeah, I
So I
think
think
there is a problem with the link, sir.
yeah.
The internet connection, sir.
Now you
No
are
problem.
audible. Now you're audible.
Please continue. Okay, sir. Okay. So that's what means. It is now become a generation. No, the players are they. It's a profession. It's a kind of a kind of a training that happens like school. You go to school and you know where to aim for
Mm-hmm.
in your career. So this is a kind of a in sports also they train you physically. They train you. They have their own diet chart. They have their own coaches. They know which muscle to be trained and which height to be there. They know how to play the ball with the other parts of the body except the hand. So
Mm-hmm.
it is there. Those type of training were not there earlier.
Right. So I think
But we have separate on it.
yeah, the football has become much more popular of late. I don't disagree with that. Primarily, what has happened is the Indians' exposure to a lot of these league telecasts. About 8, 10, 12, 15 years back, people started getting, because of the satellite TV, or because of, they started getting exposure to a lot more league football. People started watching EPL, people started watching La Liga, Bundesliga, the Real Madrid and Barcelona, etc. And that is when there was a greater interest because we are seeing football of high quality. And that football is almost available on demand. The EPLs, the La Liga, they run for about 8 months, 9 months. The IPL runs for a month and a half. Right? And IPL is fast. Football is fast. The Test cricket, the One Day International, especially Test cricket, who watches? I think a lot of people lost interest that okay, 5 day cricket, and it was also happening during the daytime. So only the core audience who follow the traditional cricket, they would love that. Right? But coming back to MLS, we realized the challenge. They said, okay, no, we can't have.
But sir, I would say, I just want to add here, once they've launched that World Cup for Test cricket, that
Mhm.
also started generating some interest in people.
Right. So there has to be a bit of competitiveness. And word Test cricket, because there has to be a culmination. Earlier there was no culmination. Every country goes and plays with each other, but there's no culmination of who's the official champion. And we need to have some validation for the official champion. Right.
Correct. Yeah.
Anyway, so we were looking at MLS. So they were faced with a problem, and it's interesting because it talks about two or three things that are important. One is it talks about that the stadia were very important. You cannot run a league till the time you have got the stadium. And at least in US it was important. In India there are plenty of cricket stadium. In US there were no football or soccer stadium. They were playing matches in a baseball stadium, and that was not the right stadium. Somebody could argue that IPL teams they do not own a stadium, but I don't think it might be possible for them to own a stadium because IPL runs for a month and a half. Unless it starts running for 8 months and 9 months, only then some of the teams would invest in a stadium. Because what do you do with a stadium that is only being used for 6 weeks or 7 weeks or 8 weeks? Right. So stadium was important. You needed to have an identity. You needed to have your own system. The other challenge obviously was that you do not attract people who watches football. Now Americans, they for the core audience, you say, okay, we are not doing great, and that is what the case also hints that in 2000, I think the 2002 FIFA World Cup, when they did better, then there was a bit of pride in the team, and MLS started attracting some audience. So again, the international success became important. And finally, they said, okay, while we have the international success, we still need the stars. And you can't afford the big stars. So what do? You get into some of these stars who are almost on the verge of retirement, who are past their prime, and you attract them. You say, okay, we'll give you a huge money. Please come and join us. And that is where David Beckham came. And they talk about the designated player rule. And even Pele had played much earlier. But what happened with David Beckham? He had a lot of charisma, and he attracted. He had a fan following which extended much beyond the traditional soccer powerhouses. In India, he had a following. In US, he had a following. And then they tried to get a Messi, and then they tried to get Ronaldo. Same trick that even Saudi is trying to do. China was trying to do the same about 3, 4 years, 5 years back, pre-COVID. They said, okay, we'll get the best players. The problem is you need to work on that for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And you need to have deep pockets. Saudi has deep pockets. But I don't know whether they have enough local number of people, enough people who can make the model interesting, or who can make the model successful. Right? Now we look at, I talk about this case because this case talks about, or it helps us understand the challenges of a league. But it's also important that we look at it in a more structured way. So I have a slide. Let me open a slide and talk about a few things which are important for the league. We'll skip some of these slides, but it's a long PPT. Just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'll share all these slides, but we talk a little bit about anatomy of leagues, the finances, implications for league structure. What do we when we talk about a sports league? A sports league, it is a group of sports teams, individuals that are competing against each other, and in a more cyclic manner, which means there is a particular frequency. It could extend for a weekend game by amateurs to international professional leagues. What's the difference between a league and a tournament? So IPL is a league.
League is a longer form.
League is longer.
Every
Okay.
team has to play. Every team has to play the other. Every team, other team.
Okay, kind of. I take that partially.
Tournament, it is divided into groups usually. Every team doesn't play all the other teams.
Okay.
You have large fan base. You have international players.
Of course, you have the amenities like stadiums in place when it comes to league. Tournament is like kind of local, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
wherein you have, let's say, state
So
level tournament.
Wimbledon is a tournament. It's not a local tournament.
Sir, tournament is basically individual game versus league is a team game.
But Santosh Trophy was a tournament. Ranji Trophy is considered a tournament.
Then basically glamour is lesser in tournament. No. It's Wimbledon. Yeah, sorry. My bad.
Right. So one, I think there are multiple things.
So
One is
tournament is a
So league
but
is recurring kind of thing, while tournament might be one time
so
thing.
tournament is a team.
team. But again, as I said, Wimbledon is not a team. It can be individual.
Sir, league might be a tournament might be a one-time thing, while league is a continuous process.
Kind of. So it's multiple things. I when I started looking up the differences. I said why some of these are called tournaments, some of them are called leagues. So one big difference is that in the league, the same set of teams participate every year. In a tournament, the composition could change. Wimbledon is a tournament, right? But you never know which 64 or which 128 people are going to participate, right? But the same definition might not apply to Ranji Trophy. Now there's another difference, and that is that typically in a league, somebody talked about that league would have every team playing almost with everybody. So tournaments could be a mix of a knockout and round robin. Leagues are predominantly a round robin where every team plays everybody else, so that it's not knockout. So ICC World Cup is typically a tournament. It's not a league because you have to qualify and you don't know who will qualify for the ICC World Cup. FIFA, the World Cup, it's a tournament. It's not a league because which 32 teams are going to play, nobody knows. So one common theme is that we should be having the same set of people participating again and again and again. Right? These are typically round robin. Tournaments are typically knockout. Leagues have become quite popular. But again, as you can see, some of them, they have not worked. Right? All these are, what you might see is not what I'll call some of them as not so successful leagues. Some of the leagues, IPL and even a Pro Kabaddi League, even ISL is kind of trying to is at least IPL is a huge success. Pro Kabaddi League is a good success. ISL, I hope in another 5-6 years they would be able to do much better. Why are leagues important? One big thing about leagues is that they generate a lot of content. India was hungry for content, but how much cricket do we have? About pre-IPL, we would have a few test matches. In the season, India would play about 15 to 16 test matches. And that is 15 into 5, roughly about 75 days of cricket. Count another 20 one-day internationals and maybe some T20s, etc. And that was the entire content. And but at the same time for football, you look at almost every day there is a EPL match for 9 months. And that is when somebody realized, they said, okay, we need to have a league format in India. Pro Kabaddi League, they said, okay, we do not have enough demand. So they started with a 1 month and then they moved to 2 months. And then they said, okay, we'll have it twice a year. And then they said, we'll have a larger league. Leagues also, they generate economic activity, livelihood for players and for everybody who's there connected with sports, market creation. We look at operation in different senses. There are different types of operators. IPL, It is owned by the National Federation, BCCI, and again operated by a wholly owned entity. HIL, Hockey India League, was owned and operated by the National Federation. Indian Badminton League was owned by the National Federation, but it was operated. They gave it to a contractor to run it. Pro Kabaddi League, owned privately but supported by the Indian Kabaddi Federation. English Premier League is privately owned. It's owned by a cooperative. And these are cooperatives who 18 teams or 20 teams who run this cooperative. Major League Soccer is joint ownership. And this is very unique. So Major League Soccer, there's one central entity that owns all the teams. One central entity that makes decisions for all the teams. And you can be an investor. Once you buy certain number of shares, once you own a team, you become a part of this, but you don't have an independent entity. Different types of operating models. MLS, ownership. La Liga, EPL, there is an association or a cooperative. IPL, there is a franchisee model. So Major League Soccer, the central investor team, it owns all the teams. Here in IPL, we have given a franchisee, we have given a right that to Mr. Shah Rukh Khan to own the KKR, to others to own all these, whether it's a Rajasthan Royals team or other teams. So they have been given a right. IPL, we have a governing council and franchisees, they run this. Franchisees do not have a lot of influence on decision making. It's the IPL governing council that does that. Major League Soccer, sanctioned by US Soccer. But what we have is single entity each. This is not an association. So here it is not an association. It's owned by the investors. There's a fixed membership, and I'll talk about promotion and relegation. So you have maybe about 20 or 30 or 40 people. The number of teams, it remains constant. Till the time the governing council, it says, okay, we can accommodate one more team. And all of them, they will vote for a team, or because that team, it brings more revenues. But at the same time, the business interest of an existing team should not be compromised. For example, if you have a team in, let's say, LA, and at the same time there is another team that is coming up maybe in San Diego, they might say, okay, San Diego and LA, if they are so close, then the revenues or the fans, they split up, and therefore they will say, okay, we can't allow another team in San Diego. If there's one team in New York, they say, should we have another team in New York? So it's a function of how much revenues can the city generate, how much revenues, and whether it makes money for everybody else. English Premier League, owned by 20 club members. Each of those members is a shareholder in the Premier League. Now, what happens here is interesting. Every year, there are two teams that are relegated. So the bottom two, they are relegated, and there are two teams that are promoted from the lower tier, the non-Premier League, the league which is just below that. And the teams that are being relegated, they transfer their shares to the other two teams. So this was different types of structures. And the idea is that, okay, if any of you get interested in, or any of you is working with the leagues, and I've talked to A month back, I was talking to a journalist from Economist. People hardly have any understanding of how the leagues are working. And they would know about IPL, but then they do not know about a generic structure of leagues. How does the American leagues work? How does the European leagues work? What are sources of revenue in the leagues? Gate money is there. There's a ticket, merchandising, broadcast rights, sponsorship. Ultimately, everything is driven by the fans. Fans bring in buy the ticket, they buy merchandise, they are sitting in front of the TV, and that generates eyeballs and that generates broadcast revenue. Because they are fans, that generates sponsorship for the teams, for the league. How does the league make money? In most of these, they'll say whether it's the IPL or a Pro Kabaddi League or a lot of these American leagues, if you want to be a part of it, you have to give me a joining fee. Even IPL, it says, okay, who wants to bid for? We have space for one more team or two more teams, and we'll take money for that. And then they've got continuous revenues from broadcast, from sponsorship, from merchandising, and other sources. League revenues, joining fee, I think I shared this. League expenses, organizing, admin, prize money, match officials, marketing. This is where you spend all the money. Franchisee revenues, they'll get some money from the league. So it's like an appearance fee. If you're playing, you might get some money. There's gate money that they get. These are the ticket revenues, sponsorship share. So IPL would have a central sponsorship. From that money, they have to share some money to the IPL teams. Franchises might have their own merchandising. I can sell the CSK jersey, or I can sell the RCB jersey, or I can sell the Mumbai Indians jersey. I might also get a share of the broadcast revenues from IPL or from the Pro Kabaddi League and so on. Franchisees spend money on all these. The biggest expense for across leagues is on the players. The player expenses happen to be about 60% of the total league cost for EPL. Even for a La Liga and Bundesliga, I think these are to the tune of roughly between 40% to 60%. Any guess how much is the expense on the players as a share of the total revenue in IPL? Any guess? I gave you the number. For EPL, it's about 60%. The total EPL revenues versus the cost, that the money that they spend on the players, it's about 60%. In IPL, any guess?
Around 40 to 50%.
It's 10%. And we think the players get paid obscene amount, but it's hardly 10%. And that's because, we again have a flat structure. We have a salary cap. The day the salary caps are removed, you'll realize that the expense on players, it shoots up. Again, if you look at the major league, the big four leagues in US, the total amounts are to the tune of about 20%, 25%. Salary caps, they suppress a player's income. This one kind, how does the revenue flow? It keeps on changing. All right. Major League Soccer, again, if you look at the finances, various types, and something very similar, that there's direct revenue to teams. Investors, operators, they generate some revenues, local broadcast rights, merchandise, sponsorship. And in US, the convenience fee is huge. The parking lots, the eating contract, the contract for eatables, etc. inside the stadia. English Premier League, they have income of teams. The teams get a flat participation fee. They get a share of TV broadcast, merit awards. So if you are ending up at the top, you'll get some more money. What creates value in a league? There is an interdependence within and across teams. Teams have to cooperate and they have to compete. So they have to cooperate for the business to work. Teams have to be independent. The business has to be collaborative. Now, there's been one difference in an American setup. In US, one person can own two teams, which is not allowed in IPL. And I think that is right. In US, as soon as you start owning two teams, there are chances of match fixing and other issues. There's a huge conflict of interest. There's at least one set of investors who own more than one team. How do I structure a league? There's to be a non-random order: who plays, how do they play, a set schedule. I need to have a champion at the end. So whatever we do, that is when they said, okay, let's make the test thing end in a championship. I need to decide on all these things: format, hierarchy, multiplicity, membership, governance. How do I schedule matches? These could be round robin, knockout. Hierarchy: should I have one league or should I have multiple leagues? Like EPL is one league, but in England there are 5 different leagues. I'll explain that. IPL is a single league. In US, you've got 2 different leagues at the top. There is a Eastern Conference and there is a Western Conference. So they have 2 different leagues. Like, in India, there's a chance that maybe after 10 years, 15 years, IPL would have a Northern IPL and a Southern IPL and maybe a Eastern IPL and a Western IPL. And then we have a grand finals. Because when the number of teams is huge, you can't have so many round robin matches. Membership: how does a team enter or exit a league? And then governance. Again, in round robin, we could have a balanced league or unbalanced league. IPL was earlier balanced. Every team would play every other team at home and away. Now they have changed to an unbalanced league where you might have your own, some teams you play 2 times and some other teams you play single. Some leagues are structured more as elimination tournament. The European leagues have a system of promotion and relegation. So you've got 5 tiers of leagues. At the top there is a Premier League. If you're starting at the bottom, if you win, then you are relegated to then you are promoted to the league above. You again win, you can again move up. And therefore, a team that is at the bottom, in 5 years, theoretically in 5 years, they can end up in the Premier League. But they need to have money to sign up players. Now, what a promotion and relegation model does is, here we do not have a salary cap, and therefore I maintain competitiveness by getting people to get promoted and relegated. So a team which is not performing well, they get relegated, and I also try to maintain a degree of competition at the lower end, because if There's nobody wants to end at the bottom because it affects them very seriously, even from a business perspective. As soon as you are relegated, you are out of the Premier League, your revenues are impacted. I talked about this. What a balanced league, what an unbalanced league. So in MLS is an unbalanced league. IPL has become of late an unbalanced league. Any idea how many NBA matches happen? How many Major League Baseball matches happen in US? Any guess? The number is not in 3 digits. So if you've got about 50 teams, just work out the numbers. You'll realize that if every team was to play every other team, the league would keep on going again, on and on and on. Scheduling becomes a challenge. Nobody has enough time to watch all these matches, and therefore their matches are pretty local. The viewership is pretty localized. So they've got into unbalanced leagues. You could have knockout, but you'll hardly find any leagues which has a knockout. Most of the leagues, they might end up, the traditional leagues, they would always have a system where every team plays every other team. They might not have a grand final. IPL has a eliminator and so on, and a grand final. So this is IPL because the finals, it attracts people. So they said, okay, it's a mixed approach. EPL does not have, La Liga does not have a grand final at the end. Once you
Even
have
sir,
round robin, yeah,
even sir, in the IPL, there was, I think 3 4 years back, there was higher viewership. The game was like in a different balanced, I would say. But now
mm-hmm.
it's like, it's not balanced. People don't watch it. It's like just the eliminator or the final one. Maybe some curious people like me who watch Test cricket sometime watch the entire game. But what we have been hearing from Tata perspective, that now they are planning to have the T10 league instead of East West North South,
Right,
because
right.
the 10 hours match, 2 hours game would be more relevant.
No, you're right. Even I don't watch IPL. I would rather, if it's a test cricket, I might go and watch it in the stadium. I do not like T20. But there's still a huge audience.
Yeah,
And maybe, I'm from a different generation, but I 2 days back, I was talking to a friend of mine and who works for ISL, and he has earlier worked with Star Sports, and he has worked with all his career for last 15 years. He has been connected to sports. And I said, okay, I don't watch T20. He said, you are an exception. He said, there's a
right.
huge crowd. There's a
Yeah,
huge crowd in the 18 to mid 20s group. They, for them, it's a evening time pass.
right,
So
sir.
the
Even
recent Bangalore and Chennai match was the viewership was around 49 crores.
yeah,
Right. No, those numbers, I would not trust them. Those mobile numbers. But yes, there's enough. You at some point of time, you realize I'm not. I could have loyal
Mm.
fans who do not generate enough business versus I can
Those
have.
are
I want to have people, the eyeballs, and I'm going to generate a lot of money. So it has moved on from sports. It has become business. Now the problem with that business is that gradually the one day international has gone. It is T20, and then people would say, okay, why should somebody watch it for 3.5 hours, 4 hours? The ideal length is of football,
yeah.
people's attention span is about 90 minutes. So let's do 100. Let's do a 10 over match. And once you have a 10 over match and everybody enjoys the ball getting whacked all around, and that is the ideal, you've got 10, 11 players and 10 over match with the impact substitution rule, we have seen what is happening. Right? So many matches. I don't think it happened in the earlier IPL round that teams were making a score of more than 200. Here they're crossing 220, 240, 270, 280. So it's no longer cricket. Yeah. But yeah, of course, if you have, as I was saying, round robin, the supply of matches is huge. Elimination, there is a huge degree of competitiveness. Every match becomes important. But then imagine a Chennai Super Kings or a Mumbai Indians on a day they are knocked out. That is what happens in World Cup cricket. Now they make sure that India is there at least to the semi-finals. Because if India loses in the league stage, then it's a big problem for ICC. League hierarchy, you need to have multiple levels.
Actually, I
USA,
guess that's what happened in 2007 when this T20 started. So India got out from the World Cup, and then they had to. I thought this T20 started because of that reason.
right, right. And it became popular, T20 became popular just because India won the World Cup.
Correct. First World Cup.
The first World Cup,
T20.
the T20 World Cup, it happened because of that, and that is how the ICL and the IPL happened. Right. Anyway, so the English leagues, they have got not one league but 5 or 10 leagues. And talent moves, they enter at the lower league and then they graduate to the upper leagues. In US, there's a single league. And sometimes they'll have a collegiate league. So NBA might have 3 leagues, but if players or teams they do not move one to other, the shallower leagues are just for talent identification and talent development. But in English Premier League, teams move from one league to the other. And the league hierarchy is very different in US and in Europe, because Europe, the teams were much before, and the leagues have started happening much later. So the team, they said, okay, we do not want to sacrifice our identity. In US, the teams were there in elementary shape, but the leagues came first, and they said, let's make it a business proposition. So US, it was driven by business, and that is where they said, okay, to make a business case, we need to have a competitiveness, and to have a competitiveness without sacrificing money, let's make sure that there is a fixed number of team, and there is a salary cap. League multiplicity. Again, India has one league. US, the Major League Baseball, etc., NHL might have multiple leagues. So you could have a Eastern Conference and a Western Conference, and then there is a grand final between Eastern Conference and Western Conference. Primarily because of geographical factors. Distance between eastern side of US and western side of US was huge. They said, okay, we can't. And if you're playing in late 90s, early 1900s, it was tough to travel. Europe, it didn't have small countries, lesser number of teams. Membership can be open or closed. US is closed. You've got a fixed set of 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 teams that are a part of the league. Europe, it is open. Every year, the membership of EPL changes. 2 teams move out, 2 teams move in. In India, it's again closed. IPL, it's closed. If you want, someday they will decide, okay, we can accommodate 1 more team or 2 more team, and then the bidding starts. And every other team is happy because they get a share of those revenues. Governance can be done in multiple ways. I talked about this. So again, European model, there's a hierarchy in leagues, 2 in Italy and Spain, 3 in Germany, 5 in England. So there are multiple leagues, 1 at the top, and then there are 4 other layers. Open system, promotion, relegation. There's something interesting that is called a parachute payment. So for the teams that are relegated, they suffer a lot because their revenues get impacted. And that is when the European model, what it does is it gives them some money for the next 2 years. So they will give them some extra money so that they can come up. So there you had a question.
The team from Pune itself, it got it's not nowadays there in IPL. So
Sorry?
how did it opt out, sir?
Which
How
one?
did it? Is there a process of opting out? A team from Pune, it was there. There from
Right,
Maharashtra,
right.
two teams were there. From one from Mumbai
So I
and
think they
from
gave
Pune.
them, they allowed them only for those 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years. So
Yes, so they didn't give
does
they
this
didn't give them a permanent
exit process
franchise.
is there?
They didn't, because I think for 1 year the CSK was banned for 1 or 2 years. Because of the match
Yes, sir.
fixing, once the teams were banned, they said, okay, we'll give them, they needed those 8 teams or 10 teams. So once the teams were banned, they said, we'll give a temporary license to 1 or 2 teams. Right? American model, fixed number of clubs. Franchisees have territorial rights. You can have only one team in one city. And that is where, I don't know how many of you have followed football. Kolkata had 3 teams, big teams. Mohan Bagan, Mohammedan Sporting, East Bengal. And then when ISL was formed, they said, okay, we cannot allow more than one team. So the traditional rivalry was gone. So this is all about business, because they say, okay, one city cannot support more than one team. Maybe India could have supported because of the population. So the challenge, how do I maintain competitive balance? How do I make the outcomes uncertain? If these are uncertain, the attendance is high, the audience is high. So you need stars, but you still need a bit of uncertainty. How do I maintain competitive balance? One is through promotion relegation. So European leagues, they have a system of promotion relegation. Bottom 2 move out. The top 2 from a lower league comes up. We also have salary caps. So in US, it's fixed, or it's fixed plus variable. In Europe, they said, okay, the cost of the players was shooting up. And then they said, okay, we could have some kind of soft cap. So only if a club is making money, revenue positive, only then they said, okay, you can only spend X% of your income on hiring players. But many teams, they flout that. They also do revenue sharing. So what you do is, you generate, the league owners would generate money, and they would give it equally to every team. Drafting, and that happens in US. The team that finishes at the bottom, they have the first right to draft people from the minor league, from the lower league. Ownership structure, IPL does not allow the same set of owners to own multiple teams. US has been allowing that. Not a great advertisement for the game. Salary caps. South American clubs have salary caps. And what is the impact? Players don't stay in South America. They'll move to Europe. So Maradona played in Europe. Started in Pele. After all these players, they started their career at Santos and all uh, uh, these clubs. But then at the prime, they moved to Europe. In South American club, because the countries as such are not as rich as the European countries, the level of monetization that they can do and the amount of money that they can pay to the players is not as high. Boca Juniors has always been a net exporter of talent, whether it was Maradona or other players. They've always exported. What they do is, they would sign up players, they would develop them, and then one of the key ways that they do a revenue generation is, by exporting players? I think we discussed some of these. Right. Do we have another 15 minutes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So let me talk about one last issue, and that pertains to the infrastructure. Any idea what is the business model of all these stadia? We've been talking about other things, but how do I make sure that the stadium is making money? Do Indian stadiums make money?
So the board gets the money in that case. The Madhya Pradesh Cricket Association would get an X amount of money from BCCI, which then is used to maintain and upgrade the stadium.
All right. Now,
And secondly, they'll also get some revenue if event is hosted in that, a match or something is hosted in that.
all right,
particular
let's
stadium.
take a look at, and let's look at the most popular stadium, or the cricket stadium. Right? And I'm not referring to the new Narendra Modi Stadium, but I'm referring to the Eden Gardens. Right? Eden Gardens. How many match days happen in Eden Gardens? Any guess? How many days of Test cricket in a year?
Maybe it's a 10 days if there are
10
two test
days. So
matches.
two Test matches.
Two test matches.
10 days. How many one-day internationals?
3, 4.
2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Maximum if there are 2 seasons.
Right. So 10 plus 3, 13. Right. How many days of T20?
3, 4
I
again.
think if there are 1 days, I doubt there will be any T20 hosted in there. So that
Right.
the matches
Including
are
IPL
equally
matches, it will have
no,
around
sir, IPL
7, 8
matches.
matches.
How many? 20.
7, 8, I'm saying, including IPL.
7, 8, right. So how many? So we have 10 plus 2, 12, plus let's say another 10.
approximately 20.
Maybe about 20.
Yeah.
What else do we have? Ranji Trophy games?
Ranji matches.
Ranji
Yeah.
Trophy, Dilip Trophy.
Dilip Trophy, right. So maybe how many
Mushtaq
others?
Ali.
So 4 into 3, 12 days or 16 days, maybe 20 days. So
Yeah.
how many? We have moved about 40 or 45.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Maximum.
How do you justify? How do I make money out of a stadium? And who is going to set up a stadium? And a stadium is a place which generates all the money.
Academies? Cricket academies and all.
Cricket academy. So I'll set up a cricket academy, but how many and how much money will it generate? The cost of maintaining a stadium runs into crores, into crores. And as you can see, I have got about a total of maybe about 30 to 40 days.
Apart from this academy, there are 3 to 4 other components also, like the selling of tickets. Apart from it, this sponsorships, hospitality packages,
Right.
and
But those are taken by the franchisees, by BCCI, the Cricket Association. But if you look at the stadia as an independent entity, how do I
They'll get a
generate
fixed
money?
amount from it. They'll get a fixed amount from each match.
So, Professor, there are stadium. They offer membership
A
of
localized bannering.
and the
Right.
broadcasting rights also.
But again, they get a little amount, right? Samir, you are saying something.
Yeah. So, Professor, basically, majority of stadium offers a membership, annual as well as lifetime membership, whereby they invite members. They pay a certain amount as annual maintenance and for lifetime they also pay. So this is
Right.
also additional source of income which they generate through membership.
Right, right. You are there, but let's talk a little bit about the challenges in maintaining, because if we are into talking about sports business, issues in infrastructure development, no regular usage, We talked about who watches Ranji Trophy, who watches Dalip Trophy. The gate money is not there. Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, how many days of events are being held there? Costly infrastructure, heart of the cities, investment. Why should a government spend money? Because it looks like, there are more important needs for a government to spend, whether it's a road or school or hospital.
But in case of cricket, most of the stadiums are owned by the cricketing BCCI only, indirectly or directly by BCCI.
But that's the point, that it does not generate money. If you look at it, if you showed it to a builder, he would say that this does not generate money. It has got a huge opportunity cost.
Yeah, but sir, they need stadiums to
right. And so what's
for
the trick?
matches.
How can we? These are not self-sustaining. That's
So
the point.
BCCI, I think, gets the money from the sponsors, which indirectly they give it
Right,
to the
but
state
the
boards,
stadia is
which
not
maintain
generating
it.
enough money, the amount that they could generate.
So, but indirectly they get it from the sponsors also, no?
Right, but the point is that is there enough? Are there enough avenues to generate more money? Because unless, why should I invest? If you ask me, and I invested in Stadia, you would realize that the money, it does not pay for itself. I'll get money from other sources. But if as a builder, somebody said, okay, please build a Stadia, I would say it is not profitable.
Yes.
How do I make it? Again, sports is a state subject. People blame central government कि अच्छा इंडिया में कुछ होता नहीं है. The state of sports is so poor, but sports is a state subject. Concurrent list में भी नहीं है, central list में भी नहीं है. They have tried to maneuver things around by having a sports minister, but sports minister should not, constitutionally, they should not have a sports minister. 1982 was Asian Games. That is when they started the Sports Authority of India. But they've made sports have been declared as an industry. But again, big challenges for infrastructure development. What needs to be done? New paradigms for investment, design, and business and revenue models. These days, government says will not invest. Let private sector invest, and we'll have a PPP model. Design, build, operate, transfer, build, operate, transfer, or you can take up all these government stadia and you can run it as on O&M contracts. Operation and maintenance contract, revenue sharing. Earlier, they were legacy stadia, bigger the better. Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, capacity of 80,000. All the ISL team, they say, I don't need a stadium that has got a capacity of 80,000 क्योंकि हमारे मैच में आते हैं 15,000 लोग. And then we have to make sure that this sit on one side and cameras are only focused on them. We don't like empty stadia. Can't be used for small events. Broadcasters sponsor hate big stadia. Stadium पूरा भरा दिखना चाहिए. There have been innovations in design. Have a flexible, nimble stadium. This steady arena in Ahmedabad. So they've got permanent seating capacity on 3 sides. You can see the image, and they have, if there are more people, then you open what you see written as steady arena. If you lift it, there are seats there. So what is written as steady arena on inside, it's indoor stadium. But once you open that, you can have temporary seating there. So that is inside that steady arena. So there is an open stadia and there is a closed stadia, and both can be combined. So
Sir, I just wanted to say that earlier, even soccer matches was held at the Eden Gardens, apart from the cricket matches.
Yes. You're right. I think even some of the foreign players, they have come and played there.
Pele had played there.
Pele had played there.
Yeah. Maradona also had played there. No, Maradona had played at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium.
Because you needed to have a capacity of that 80,000, 90,000 people.
Yeah.
They converted it, and they could convert it for Pele and Maradona, but not for everybody else. Multiple revenue sources. We need to generate revenue from sports and non-sports. Marketing is important. There's the Trivandrum Sports Hub. Stadia built in Trivandrum on PPP model. How does this stadia? So what happened? It's the government didn't have enough money. They had the land. A private sector entity, they said, okay, Island FS, they said, okay, we'll build this stadia. And then they did their own analysis and they were short of some revenue for the, and they said, okay, you pay us some money. So government paid them some money for the 15 years, and after 15 years, the government gets the ownership of the stadium. And how does ILNFS generate money? It is a business case where they generate money from sports, from club. That is what I think Samir was talking about. Convention halls, retail, and entertainment. The same thing with Study Arena.
Let us know some of the anything else for the meeting, I think. Yes. Looks like it'll be you.
There are only 2 points that we have derived from P4. One is this definition, and the other is the life cycle piece.
Right. Right. So how do they generate? They focus on talent, training, infrastructure, equipment, sports medicine. So it becomes a destination for sports of all kinds of sports services. The stadium was built from scratch. It not only it has sports facilities, but every stadium would also have, so that you can have football matches, cricket matches, indoor sports, training. And they make sure that they've got convention halls. There's a huge real estate play, club facilities, Study Arena. What they do is they have a sports club attached with the stadium. For the membership of the club, I charge an annual deposit of 30 lakh rupees. So 30 lakh rupees, I attract 500 members. 30 lakh into 500. Do the maths. And that is a deposit on which I don't pay any interest. So about 150 crore rupees is I'm getting just from the deposit. 150 crore rupees, even at a 8% interest, I'm making 12 crore rupees per annum. And then I charge members for every other thing. I've got hotel rooms. I charge for those. I've got a mall below the stadium, on the sides of the stadium. I make money from that. VIP galleries, all these. So these stadia, they were built from scratch for all these. Look at the rightmost column. Retail, food court, convention hall, dormitories, parking space. So these stadia, they were built as a business entity. They realized that sports, and they said, okay, we have to diversify. I cannot have it only for cricket. I need to have facilities for multiple sports, and I need to have places where spectators can also come and watch, so that it allows for all the new leagues that are happening enough chances for them to hire our facilities. Income from multiple sources. You want your name as a sponsor, please pay us this much amount. Sports have academies. So Anil Kumble's academy runs from here.
Right.
So and that is where their revenues are much higher than most of the other stadiums. Correct? I worked on a project for Sports Authority of India, simply looking at the monetization of these 5 big stadia in Delhi: Jawaharlal Nehru Indira Gandhi Indoor Stadium, Talkatore Stadium, the Major Dhyan Chand Stadium, and Karni Singh Range. And again, similar issues. And what we recommended, I think they've started following it. All kinds of generating money from sports and non-sports. Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium has a huge space. Said, please open a club there. The club itself would take care of all your revenue expenses because it would generate about a few crore rupees every year. Because what Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium does, they demand from government some about 2 crores or 3 crores every year for maintenance of the facilities. Here we said you'll be easily able to generate about 8-10 crore rupees as surplus just from the club. We talked about event calendars. You need to make sure that there are sufficient number of events being held. Curate all these events. Encourage all these leagues to come and play their matches at your place. Develop leagues, sports shops, sports museums, sports incubation, restaurants, multiplex. Right. Right. Last, we also talked about, and that is one sad story of the Indian sports infrastructure. Nobody talks about, there's no communication of what events are happening. How do I book facilities? And these are from Singapore, Sports Hub. And on Twitter, you would have all these events. And I'm talking of 2017. Even till date, the Indian stadia, they do not have enough events and they do not communicate. Lastly, one last topic, I'll take 5 more minutes on infra. Athens Olympics, they spent $7 billion building huge stadium. This is the aquatic center after the Olympics were held. Beach volleyball, training pool, all these big infrastructure projects for these Olympics, etc. Huge, you need huge spectator capacity, training facilities, taxpayers' money spent on all of these. What's the solution? India also, we have done this. Jharkhand spent money on Khelgaon for the national games. Brazil spent $12 billion for the Olympics. The best practices, if you are designing infrastructure, let's keep the post-game usage. Create multi-purpose structures, temporary structures. So in London, when they had these Olympics, they worked on temporary seats, portable toilets, worked with tents, and one of the best game experiences. Their swimming pool, Olympic-sized swimming pool, they were only meant as a temporary swimming pool. So you make a temporary swimming pool for the event and then dismantle it. They said we need a velodrome because cycling is very popular in England. They said we'll build a velodrome we do not want basketball court because the demand for basketball court is less. We'll make temporary basketball court. Aquatic center, they said we need aquatic center with spectators. They said we'll have spectators for 17,000 seats for spectators, but 15,000 are temporary seats. We'll remove them. Build temporary wings, remove them. This is Middle East, Qatar experience of managing Stadium 974. Any guess why is it called 974? That is the ISD code for Qatar. And it was also built using 974 containers, used containers. And the plan was that once the games are held, we'll dismantle the stadium. They said we'll ship it. I don't know whether it has actually happened. All the other stadia, they built multiple stadia, but they had to keep the post usage. So some stadia were built so that they could be used as education purpose, for malls and so on. Okay, so I'll stop here. Right. But the intention behind talking about sports and sports marketing was that we last 8-10 years, what I've seen is that there's a demand for professionals on the sports side, and people are not even aware. They do not understand the way the business models are working. And for some of you who might be interested in that domain, we thought we'll have a short module on sports side so that people understand the challenges, people understand the business opportunities, people are familiar with the terms. So apologies for a longer session, but I think it was also because we were not able to have the earlier session. Saturday, we are going to walk into the pricing domain. So look forward to meeting you all again on Saturday. Back to
So
back.
this Saturday you'll have class?
Yes, we have the class.
So we have a couple of sessions on Saturday. So please be prepared. Go through the readings. The readings are light.
Just a second.
All right.
So which
Sir,
readings?
I think
I'll try and send you an email tomorrow.
Okay. So initially the office told that today will be the last classes. Maybe
yes, sir.
it will be extended to till 9 o'clock or something. We were mentally prepared also even. That was the reason.
Okay. I told them that we'll have it till 8:30.
Okay, great. That's great. Even it's an office day.
And on Saturday we have a couple of sessions for the pricing codes.
Strategic pricing.
Strategic pricing. Right. So, but there are some light readings. These are articles from a magazine. So please go through them. That will just familiarize you with the basics or the current challenges of pricing. All right.
So another one last thing, since Saturday will be the last class, would you also guide us in the market, like
Saturday is not the last class. Who said Saturday is the last?
Saturday is the first class of that particular
Saturday is the
session.
first class for pricing.
Yes.
I was just saying that only.
This is the last class of this.
So that's a different module, but sports
Yeah.
should be the last, right?
Sport today is the last.
Today's
Today is the last.
That was I was thinking, like we have been told today will be the last class of sports.
Yeah.
So like since Saturday also we are going with a module, a different module, but is it possible at some point of time, since you will be also only continuing, because sports marketing is a little bit of alien for us, though you have explained very deeply and very very openly different pros, cons and opportunities and all. But as a marketer, a lot of times, a lot of different brands came up with the different media opportunities and all. As a marketer, we want to understand, if I, for my brand, which are the right placements I need to go, which are the right options I should be coming up and placing my brand for there, if I need to go into that media buying, or if I don't want to. Maybe a little bit of your guidance, if we can get a 15
So why don't we take it offline?
Yeah,
right? You can reach out to me, and I think another opportunity is when you are coming back to the campus, hopefully we'll have some time to discuss it, because this might not be of interest to everybody.
Okay.
Right. So drop me an email.
Okay.
And then we can take it offline.
Sir,
Sure.
if you're free, can we meet? Because I'm in Indore itself, and it'll be of great help.
आप तो आ जाइए.
So when are you free, sir?
So on this topic, I'm
communicate
free.
on the
I'll
email.
be free. I'll be okay to join over Zoom, though I'm not in Indore.
Right. So drop me an email. We'll
Sure.
we'll figure out a time. And Mayank, you can also drop me an email of or I think I've shared my phone number as well.
No, sir, we don't have it.
So drop me a WhatsApp message. I think that works better.
Okay, sir. So the number will be in your email or somewhere, something.
It's in the chat box.
Okay, sir. Got it. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So drop me a message and hopefully we'll figure out a time. Right.
Right, sir.
And Mayank, I think you are more flexible. How far are you from the campus?
Right, sir. I am currently at IT Park only, so we'll just 5-10 minutes drive from here. Not more than that.
10 minutes drive from there.
Yeah, I don't think so. It will be more than 10 minutes.
नहीं ज़्यादा लगता है. It will be about 25 minutes, 25 minutes, right? But we'll figure out a time.
Sure, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Chalo, enjoy yourself. Enjoy your Sunday. Tomorrow you don't have a class.
Pardon, sir?
Tomorrow you don't have a. Now we have a class on Saturday and no class on Sunday.
Yes, sir. Only Saturday. Yeah.
Only Saturday. All right. Enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Sir, you'll be sharing these slides over mail?
Yes. Okay. You want it right now?
Anything is fine.
Yes.
So give me a minute. Let me try and share. Let me share it on an email. I'll ask the program office to share it because not everybody is here and people will say that.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So I'll share all these slides. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.